السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Math Grade 5 Chapter 10. Today we want to learn multiply whole numbers and fractions. Multiply whole numbers and fractions. See with me this video.
Hello, welcome to this lesson of Mastering 5th Grade Math. My name is Jason. I'll be your host and your teacher in this batch of lessons. And what we're going to focus on now is primarily on how to multiply and divide fractions. Now, you already have learned how to add and subtract fractions. We've been doing that. We've also learned how to simplify fractions. We've done that as previous material. So if you're unsure how to add or subtract or simplify fractions, go to the previous lessons to get that. Here we're going to start to learn how to multiply and divide fractions. Now, the key to learning how to multiply fractions, which is what we're basically starting in this lesson, it's actually easier than adding or subtracting fractions. To be truthful, multiplying and dividing them is actually easier. And that's because in order to multiply, divide fractions, you do not have to worry about a common denominator. See, that's what we had to do with adding and subtracting fractions. I kept telling you, common denominator, common denominator. But here, when we multiply fractions, or we multiply whole numbers times fractions, which is what we're doing here, we do not have to worry about common denominators. It makes it much simpler. So let's just jump into that. What if I asked you, multiply 3 times the fraction 2/3? All right? Now, look at this, and you would probably say, I have no idea how to do that. But then you should remember something from a previous lesson that we have discussed. And that is that any whole number that you have, whether it's 3 or 5 or 7 or 10 or anything else, you can always write it as the number divided by 1 or the number over 1, because fractions, this is a fraction here, is really also represented by division. We talked about that many times before. So if you want to represent the number 3, you can always write it as a fraction, simply 3 over 1, because that's 3 divided by 1, which is just 3. So this, the number 3, and this, the fraction 3 over 1, is exactly the same thing, because this is like division here. 3 over 1 is 3. All right, so we're still multiplying by 2/3. And we want to show you how do we calculate that. So I said before, when you multiply fractions together, and also you'll learn later, when you divide fractions, you do not have to worry about a common denominator. So it's actually easier. These denominators are different. You have a 1 and you have a 3, but that's okay. All you do to multiply fractions is you do 3 times 2 on the top, we multiply the numerators, and 1 times 3 on the bottom. We just multiply the denominator. So on the top, you will get 6, and on the bottom, you will get 3. That is the answer, 6/3. But you have to ask yourself, is this simplified? You always check your fraction when you're done to see if it's fully simplified. And this one, we have a 6 over 3, so we can try to simplify it, but then we realize this is the same as 6 divided by 3, and 6 divided by 3 is 2. 6 divided by 3 is 2, and 2 is the answer. So you may ask yourself, well, how is it you take 3 times a fraction and what you get at the end is just a number? Well, think of it this way. We know that you can multiply regular old fractions by numbers, and you can sometimes end up with numbers. For instance, if I have half of a pizza and I multiply that times 2, what do I get? A whole pizza. Let's show you how that would work if we're actually going to do that problem. If we have 2 times 1/2 of a pizza, how would we do that? Well, you know the answer is 1 whole pizza, but let's show how you do it with the math here. And the way you do that is the 2, you just write it as 2 over 1. We're still multiplying 1 by 1/2. All right? And then what you do is you multiply the numerators, 2 times 1, and then the denominators 1 times 2. So what you get over here on the top is 2, and on the bottom you also get 2. And if you remember, 2 divided by 2 gives you 1. So you know from your experience that 2 times 1/2 of something should give you a whole pizza or a whole peanut butter and jelly sandwich or whatever it is you're talking about. This is how you do it in terms of the math. So that's how you can get this in this case. If you measure 2/3 of a pizza out and you take 2/3 of the pizza from one box, and then 2/3 of the pizza from a second box, from a second pizza, and then 2/3 of a pizza from another box, and you arrange all of those slices together, you're going to end up with 2 whole pizzas. It's the same exact concept. The fundamental key thing here is to remember that when you are multiplying a fraction times a whole number, you write the whole number over 1, and then you multiply the fractions by multiplying the tops, multiplying the bottoms. So let's get some more practice with this. What if we have the number 12 times 1/3? 12 times 1/3. Well, the first thing we want to do, we cannot multiply these unless we're multiplying 2 fractions. So we represent the 12 as 12 over 1. We're still multiplying by 1/3. All right, now up here, we end up with 12 times 1 on the top, and on the bottom, we end up with 1 times 3. And so on the top, 12 times 1 gives you 12. On the bottom, 1 times 3 gives you 3. And you try to simplify this, but then you realize I can divide this. 12 divided by 3 is going to give me 4. So the answer is just 4. So far, for every time we've multiplied a fraction by a whole number, we've always gotten a whole number back. But that's not always the case. Let's do one when that's not the case. What if we have 2/5 times 5? Now here we've had the whole number times the fraction, whole number times the fraction. Here we have it backwards, the fraction times the whole number. But you do exactly the same thing. I mean, there's no difference. You write it as 2/5 times, and then the 5 becomes a 5 over 1. You always write whole numbers as fractions. And then what you have is 2 times 5 on the top. And here you have 5 times 1 on the bottom. You do not have to worry about getting any kind of common denominator to multiply fractions. What you get on the top, 2 times 5 is 10. On the bottom, you will get 5 times 1 is 5. And this is one of those cases where you're going to get a whole number. 10 divided by 5 is going to give you 2. 10 divided by 5 is going to give you 2. Now let's do one where when we do the multiplication, we don't actually end up with a whole number at the end. All right, let's say we're doing the fraction 3/5 times 4. All right, and we want to multiply this. So the first thing we do is we write 3/5 times, and we write the 4 as 4 over 1. So now we have a fraction times a fraction. So then we multiply the tops, 3 times 4. We multiply the bottoms, 5 times 1. And what we get on the top, 3 times 4 is 12. And on the bottom, 5 times 1 is 5. So that's the answer, but we always try to simplify it. The first thing we look for is we say, can we say 12 divided by 5? Well, it doesn't really divide evenly, so we can't get a whole number as we have for the other fractions. Secondly, we try to simplify. Can we divide top and bottom by any single number to make this simpler? And we can't do that either. We can't divide by 2 or by 3 for both of these guys because we have that pesky 5 on the bottom. That's not going to let us do that. So basically, you could circle this as the answer, but then we also realize that this is an improper fraction. All right, and we can always convert improper fractions to mixed numbers. How many times will 5 go into 12? Well, it'll go 2 times because 5 times 2 is 10. Now, the difference between 12 and 10 is only 2, so that's the remainder, and we it over the denominator, which is 5. So the answer that we get from this multiplication can be written as an improper fraction, 12 over 5, or you can write it as 2 and 2/5. They both represent exactly the same thing. Because, you know, mixed numbers and improper fractions, we can always switch back and forth. Okay? Now, what if we have 2/5 times 12? We want to do that one. So we have the same sort of thing. We take 2/5 times 12 over 1. We write the whole number as 12 over 1, 2 times 12 on the top, and 5 times 1 on the bottom. Now, if you remember from your multiplication tables, 12 times 2 is 24 on the top, and 5 times 1 is 5 on the bottom. So you get 24 over 5. So we try to simplify this, and we really can't divide it 24 over 5 evenly. We can't really pick a number to simplify the fraction, so we could circle it like this. But then we also realize that this is also an improper fraction, so we can convert to mixed numbers. So 6 times 5 is 30, that's too many times. 5 times 5 is 25, that's too many times. 4 times 5 is 20, so this can be divided into there. 24 divided by 5 can go a whole 4 times. It gives us 20. Here. So we get 4 and 4/5. If you're having problems converting from improper fraction to mixed numbers, then go back to some of the previous lessons in the 5th grade series. We have a lot of practice with how to go back and forth between mixed numbers and improper fractions. So when I circle both of these answers, basically you can write it either way. You're getting exactly the same answer. All right? Now, I have a couple more just to get a little more practice. What about the number 1/6 times 3? Well, the way we would write that is 1/6 times, we'd write the 3 as 3 over 1. And then we multiply the numerators, 1 times 3, and then 6 times 1. All right? And so then if I switch colors here on the top, I'm going to get 3. 1 times 3 is 3. On the bottom, I'm going to get 6. So you could say that that's the answer, but then we realize right away, we try to simplify it. This is not an improper fraction, but I can simplify this by dividing the top by 3 and also the bottom by 3. So 3 divided by 3 gives us 1 on the top. 6 divided by 3 gives us 2 on the bottom. And so you get 1/2. So this is the final answer, 1/2. If you take 1/6 of a pizza and you do that 3 times from 3 different pizzas and arrange them together, what you actually have at the end of the day is half of a pizza if you arrange all the slices. All right. The final problem we're going to do in this set here is 2/7 times 2. 2/7 times 2. So what you do is you keep the fraction 2/7 and you write the whole number as 2 over 1, and then you multiply the numerators, 2 times 2, and then you multiply the denominator, 7 times 1. And what you will get when you do both of those things, on the top, 2 times 2 is 4, and 7 times 1 is 7. And so you look at this and you say, can I simplify it anymore? And the answer is you really cannot. 4/7 is the final answer. I cannot divide top and bottom by anything to simplify that. It's also not improper, so I can't really do anything with that. So this is the final answer. If you have any problems simplifying a fraction to 1/2 like we did here, or converting to mixed numbers, or something like that, then you need to take a few minutes and go back to my previous lessons. We learned how to simplify fractions, and we learned how to convert to mixed numbers, because those skills we're going to use in all of these problems. Every time we multiply fractions, we get the answer, we always check to see if we can simplify it, so you have to know how to do this stuff. So here is an introduction to the first concept here, where we're multiplying a whole number times a fraction. And you've seen that the way you do that is you always convert the whole number to a fraction by changing it from the number over to the number over 1. And then once you have it as fraction times fraction, you always multiply the numerators, you always multiply the denominators, and you simplify the results. Very simple. You do not have to worry about finding a common denominator when you multiply or divide fractions. So keep that in mind. Make sure.
So today we want to learn how to multiply whole numbers and fractions. How to multiply whole numbers and fractions. As you see here, we have 5 multiplied by 2 over 3. 5 is a whole number and 2 over 3 fraction. We want to learn today how to multiply this operation. And you see here, we have 5 over 6 multiplied by 4. 5 over 6 fraction, and 4 is a whole number. Today we want to learn how to multiply whole number by fraction, or fraction by whole number. See with me now this video.
Have fun and learn math at the same time with Adapted Mind, a fun learn.
In this video, we're going to focus on multiplying fractions. Fractions in the form of improper fractions and mixed numbers. But let's begin with a simple example. Let's say if we have this fraction and we wish to multiply it by a whole number. How can we do so? What would you do in this example? Well, you can simply write the 5 as 5 over 1 and multiply across. 3 times 5 is 15. 7 times 1 is simply 7. And so this is equal to 15 over 7. Now, if you wish to convert the improper fraction into a mixed number, here's what you can do. What I like to do is to break down 15 into two numbers, one of which is a multiple of 7. So 7 goes into 14. 7 goes into 15 two times. But I'm going to break it into 14 and 1 because 14 plus 1 is 15. 14 divided by 2 is 7. 14 divided by 7 is 2. And 2 plus 1 over 7, you can write it as 2 1/7. So you can leave your answer like this, 15 over 7, or you can write it as a mixed number if you want to. Let's work on some more examples. Go ahead and try this one. Multiply 7 over 6 by 8. So feel free to pause the video and work on the example. You can leave your answer as an improper fraction or as a mixed number. So let's write it as 8 over 1. 7 times 8 is 56. 6 times 1 is 6. Now we can reduce the fraction. Both numbers are divisible by 2. Half of 56 is 28. Half of 6 is 3. So this is the answer in its simplest form, as an improper fraction. But now let's convert it into a mixed number. The highest multiple of 3, just under 28, is 27. So 28, I'm going to write it as 27 plus 1. 27 divided by 3 is 9. 9 plus 1/3 can be rewritten as 9 1/3. So that's the answer as a mixed number. Now let's work on another example. Try this one. 24 divided by 7 times 21. Now for this particular problem, you can multiply 24 by 21 and you can get a large answer, and then you'll have to divide it by 7, but I think it's easier if we divide first instead of multiply. Before we do this example, let me show you another one.
Stop.
12 times 8. So there's two ways you can do this.
Stop.
You can say 12 times 8 is 96. 96 divided by 4.
Yes.
أستاذ عجز يا رسلي عجز يا رسلي.
Okay, no problem.
حتى أنا أستاذ عجز يا رسلي.
Okay, no problem. Don't ask me, please. Don't take permission. No problem.
Is 24. Or you can divide first. You can take 8 and divide by 4. 8 divided by 4 is 2. 12 times 2 is 24. So if you divide first, it's going to be a lot easier. Now, if you want to show your work, what you can do is you can write it like this. So instead of dividing it as 8 over 4, I'm going to break down 8 into 4 and 2. So notice that the 4's cancel. And thus you can see 12 times 2 is 24. So that's the way I'm going to solve this particular problem. So I have 24 on top. 21, I can write it as 7 times 3. And notice that the 7's cancel. And so all I have left over is 24 times 3. 24 is basically 20 plus 4. And if I distribute, 3 times 20 is 60. 3 times 4 is 12. 60 plus 12 is 72. Times 3 is 72. So now what if we want to multiply a whole number by a mixed number? How can we do that? For this type of problem, just convert the mixed number into an improper fraction. To do that, the denominator is going to stay the same. Multiply these two numbers, so it's going to be 2 times 2, and then add the numerator to it. So it's 2 times 2 plus 1. So 2 times 2 is 4. 4 plus 1 is 5. So 2 and 1/2 is the same as 5 over 2. Now, for this one, we could just multiply across. 4 times 5 is not a big number. It's only 20. 20 divided by 2 is 10. If you get a large number, it's easier if you divide first. If we chose to divide first, 4 divided by 2 is 2. 2 times 5 is 10. We'll get the same answer.
O great one who summons me, I stand by my oath, loyalty to wishes 3.
Let's work on some more examples. What is 6 multiplied by 4 and 2/3? So let's convert it into an improper fraction. So let's keep the denominator the same. Let's multiply 4 by 3, and let's add 2 to it. So 4 times 3 is 12. 12 plus 2 is 14. So this is what we now have. So instead of multiplying 6 by 14, let's divide 6 by 3. Or you can rewrite 6 as 3 times 2. And then we can cancel a 3. So what we have left over is 2 times 14, which is 28. So that's the final answer. Another way in which you can do these problems, if you like to see things from a different perspective, realize that 4 and 2/3 is equivalent to 4 plus 2/3. Now we could distribute the 6. 6 times 4 is 24. And what is 6 times 2/3? Well, 6 times 2 is 12. 12 divided by 3 is 4. And 24 plus 4 is 28. So you can also do it that way too if you want. What is 2 3/4 multiplied by 8? Let's use the second method to get the answer. So 2 3/4 is basically 2 plus 3/4 and times 8. We know that 8 times 2 is 16. And 8 times 3/4. Well, 8 times 3 is 24. 24 divided by 4 is 6. Or you could do 8 divided by 4, which is 2. 2 times 3 is 6. And then 16 plus 6 is 22. Now, for those of you who like to stick with the first method, let's do it that way too. So let's convert the mixed number into an improper fraction. So let's keep the denominator the same. Let's multiply the 4 by 2, and let's add 3 to it. So 4 times 2 is 8. 8 plus 3 is 11. And I'm going to change 8 into 4 times 2. So we can cancel the 4's, and we can see that 11 times 2 is 22. So we get the same answer. Now, what if we want to multiply two mixed numbers together? What is 2 2/5 multiplied by 3 1/3? So pause the video, take a minute and see how you can solve it. Go ahead and try this example. So let's begin. The best way to solve it, personally, I think, is just to convert both mixed numbers into improper fractions. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to keep the 5 on the bottom and the 3 as well. On top is going to be 5 times 2 plus 2. And here we're going to have 3 times 3 plus 1. So keep in mind, you need to multiply these two numbers and then add the numerator. 5 times 2 is 10. 10 plus 2 is 12. So we have 12 divided by 5. 3 plus 3 is 9 3 times 3 is 9. Plus 1, that's 10. So this is 10 over 3. So now we can multiply 12 and 10. That's going to be 120. And then 5 and 3, which will be 15. But then we'll have to reduce the fraction. And now we have a large number to deal with. So let's make our life a lot easier. Let's break down the 12 into 4 and 3. And let's break down the 10 into 5 and 2. So notice that it's a lot easier. We could cancel a 3, and we can cancel a 5. And so all we have left over is 4 times 2, which is equal to 8. So 12 over 5 times 10 over 3 is 8. And if you take 120 and decided to divide it by 15, you will get 8 as well. But without a calculator, this will take longer to do. So if you don't have access to a calculator, break down these numbers into small numbers and simply cancel. It makes the process a lot easier. Let's try one more example. Let's multiply 2 and 1/4 by 1 and 13 over 15. So what's 2 and 1/4? Let's convert that to a mixed number. I mean, not a mixed number, but an improper fraction. So it's going to be 2 times 4 plus 1. And for the other mixed number, it's going to be 15 times 1 plus 13. So 2 times 4 is 8. 8 plus 1 is 9. So we have 9 over 4. 15 times 1 is 15 plus 13. That's equal to 28. Now, if you don't know what 9 times 28 is, let's simplify it before we multiply. So 9, we could break that into 3 times 3. We can leave the 4 alone. 28, we can make it 7 times 4. And 15, 5 times 3. So we can cancel a 3, and we can cancel a 4. So now we have 3 times 7, which is equal to 21. And we have a 5 on the bottom, so it's 21 over 5. But now let's write our final answer as a mixed number. By the way, this answer is correct as an improper fraction. So let's break down 21 into 20 and 1, since 20 is divisible by 5. 20 divided by 5 is 4. 4 plus 1 over 5 is equivalent to 4 and 1/5. So that's it.
Multiply, write in simplest form. Example 1. Multiply, write in simplest form. As you see here, we have fraction multiplied by whole number. The first step, change from whole number to the fraction. How? Put the denominator 1. Put the denominator 1. So I can write 13 over 1. In this way, I can change from whole number to the fraction. Then I have now fraction multiplied by fraction. How to multiply fraction? Multiply the numerator with the numerator. 2 multiplied by 13. Then denominator by denominator. 3 multiplied by 1. 2 multiplied by 13 will be 26. 3 multiplied by 1 will be 3. Here, in this example, multiply, write in simplest form. We have here 16 multiplied by 1 over 4. As you see here, we have whole number multiplied by fraction. Change from whole number to the fraction. How? Put the denominator 1. So we can write 16 equals 16 over 1. Multiply by 1 over 4. How to multiply the two fractions? How to multiply the two fractions here? 16 multiplied by 1 and 1 multiplied by 4. 16 multiplied by 1 will be 16 and 1 multiplied by 4 will be 4. 16 divided by 4 will be 4. 16 divided by 4 will be 4. Multiply, then write in simplest form. We have 7 over 8 multiplied by 16. Change from whole number to the fraction. Put the denominator, put here 1. So I can write 16 over 1. And here the same fraction. Now we can write 7 multiplied by 16. Then 8 7 multiplied by 6 will be 112, and 8 multiplied by 1 will be 8. Now 112 divided by 8 will be 14. Here, change 21 to the 21 over 1. And here we have 1 over 7. 21 multiplied by 1 and 1 multiplied by 7. So we can write 21 multiplied by 1, and here 1 multiplied by 7. 21 multiplied by 1 will be 21, and 1 multiplied by 7 will be 7. 21 divided by 7 will be 3. Here we have some videos. When you have free time, you can see our videos here. And this is our lesson today. Who has a question now? Who has a question?
أستاذ
Yes, tell me.
متى بدأت الحصة؟ لأن أنا دخلت على مال الماث وما لقيت إنه كان موجود حصة. بعدين يوم طلع لي دعوة ضغطت عليها وطلع إن أنت ياس تشرح الفيديو. شرحت شيء قبل؟
We will start this period at 12 and 10. 12 and 10. Who has a question through our lesson?
No one, Mr. No one.
It's clear for all?
Yes.
So what is the name of our lesson today?
Multiply whole number and
Multiplying whole numbers and fractions.
Great. Let us to take attendance now.
yes.
أستاذ أولاد أول.
Lottie here?
نعم أستاذ.
حارب.
أستاذ أقدر أطلع.
Yes, you can. حارب. Where is حارب?
Absent.
محمد علي.
نعم أستاذ.
منصور علي. منصور علي. منصور علي. حمدان الكعبي. حمدان الكعبي. حمدان الكعبي. خالد خليل.
نعم مستر. أستاذ عندي سؤال.
تفضل.
متى بيبدأ الحصة الأخيرة؟
الساعة الواحدة. دانيال.
Yes, Mister.
زايد. زايد.
Yes.
سعيد محمد. سعيد محمد.
أستاذ أنا موجود.
سعيد محمد. سعيد محمد موجود؟ سلطان علي. سلطان علي. سلطان علي. سلطان غازي.
لا ما حط الكبسة.
سلطان غازي. عامر أحمد.
نعم أستاذ.
عبد الله محمد.
أستاذ نطلع.
يس. عبد الله الراشد.
نعم.
عبد الله محمد الجابري. عبد الله الجابري. عبد الله الجابري.
نطلع.
Yes, you can.
أوكي باي.
عبد الله مسعود. عبد الله مسعود. عبد الله مسعود.
أستاذ
نعم.
أستاذ أنا سعيد كنت قاعد أصلي.
الله
عادي
يخليك.
تخليني.
اوكي. عمر اشرف.
نعم أستاذ.
عمير الشامسي.
هير
عمير.
أستاذ. هير.
نعم
لا.
أستاذ. نعم.
مايد.
نعم.
محمد أحمد.
نعم.
محمد أحمد الحمادي.
نعم أستاذ. نعم.
محمد سعيد سريفي.
أستاذ أيليف مستر سعيد محمد أيليف.
يس you can.
أستاذ أنا محمد سعيد.
نعم أستاذ.
محمد سعيد السريفي. محمد سعيد السريفي.
نعم.
نمبر.
محمد سعيد السريفي. سهيل.
موجود.
مطاوع سيف.
نعم. نعم أستاذ.
معاذ شعيب.
Here.
كيف. سيب.
هير.
اليازيا. اليازيا. اليازيا.
نعم مستر.
جود.
Here Mr. Here.
ريناد.
Here مستر.
روضة. روضة ناصر. روضة ناصر.
أدخل.
شمسة فيصل.
Here مستر.
أوكي. شيخة حمد.
Yes.
شيخة بدر. شيخة بدر. شيخة بدر. شيخة بدر. عليا. عليا خالد. عليا. عليا. لطيفة. لطيفة. لطيفة.
مستر عليا here عليا.
لطيفة.
Can I leave now, Mister?
Yes, you can. لطيفة. لين.
Yes, Mister.
مروة. ماريا، سوري، ماريا.
Yes, Mister.
مروة.
Here.
مريم. 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 مريم فوزي.
Here.
مهرة فيصل. مو سعيد.
نعم مستر.
نغم.
Here, Mister.
نورة.
Here, Mister.
هاجر. 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 مهرة خلفان. مهرة خلفان. مهرة خلفان.
Here, Mister.
Okay. So this is our lesson today. Thank you for your listening. Have a nice day. See you tomorrow إن شاء الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.